Yeah, I have the list of questions that the Roughrider family submitted. I'm also looking over the text that Doug sent. Um, I guess we have like those three major areas that we wanted to cover. One was what was this year like with the early end to the season, and what's happening with fifth years and eligibility.
Okay.
So there's
You want to go with that?
Yeah, like, I mean, it must have been really disappointing for you guys to be all revved up. I know you were 4 or 5 games into the season.
Yeah, we literally were on our way out to practice on a Thursday. I actually texted Brother Boo and said, "Hey, we're heading out to practice. Should we prepare for Michigan on Sunday, or should we have fun?" And he said, "Have fun." So that's when I knew we were about to get the plug pulled on our season. So we went through it. We kind of had a practice just to have fun. We went out there and did a bunch of drills that the guys like doing, and played some 3-by and did some stuff, and just kind of. And then at the end of it, we got the official word from our administration by the end of practice that was the end. So, yeah, it's tough. I mean, those guys, especially the seniors, you feel for. They've worked so hard for 4 years to be in that situation. But any of the guys, I mean, nobody's more revved up than a freshman who's playing and still looking for the best part of the season to be ahead of them. So disappointing that way. How we've handled it since then, guys, to be honest with you, we haven't talked to our guys about lacrosse at all. We sent them home with a summer workout plan that extended into the extra weeks and months there that they were going to be away. That included body weight stuff in addition to the regular stuff that we would send home with them. But we generally always include that for guys who are on vacation or at the beach or whatever. Here's a workout you can do. So. But other than that, we haven't talked to our guys about this. We've stayed in very close touch with them, email, text, phone calls every week. But really just worried about their well-being, worried about them getting through the semester with the challenges of the distance learning and all that stuff, and worried about guys being in a good, safe spot with their families and everything. So there's plenty of time to get back to lacrosse before we need to. We're not worried about guys getting better as lacrosse players right now. We finish exams at the end of next week, and maybe we'll start some of those conversations at that point. But up till now, we haven't done that at all.
So will that affect your fifth year guys, scholarship totals, roster sizes? How's that going to impact?
They left it to everybody, right? The NCAA left every school and every conference holding the bag on this, and basically said you can do what you want. So the Ivies came out and said, well, we're not giving anybody anything. Although then within the Ivies, some guys came up with ways to do it, and others didn't. So it's even within conferences, it's different. What Notre Dame said to us is you can bring back guys if you want, but we're not giving you any extra money. The NCAA left it that your seniors could actually come back. You could exceed 12.6 scholarships next year if it was with money that you were giving to fifth-year seniors who were on your team, and they were getting the same money they had the year before. So you could, under those parameters, you could expand. Some schools are, we're not. Notre Dame said we're going to stay with 12.6. Perfectly understandable. But they are allowing us to manage our roster any way we want. So we're going to probably, we are certainly going to have some guys back. I think we'll probably very likely have some guys coming in. A few guys coming in from the outside, as we have had grad transfers for the last 7 or 8 years. So nothing really too much of a change for us in the way we're operating.
So for looking down the road of recruiting, sorry, I interrupted somebody, but I assume your 20s they're all signs. They're kind of guaranteed spots and part of that scholarship. 21s, I assume your class is pretty full. Then going into 22s, like, do you think that school will have smaller classes, recruiting classes in the 22s, or the same, or how do you think it'll impact that year?
21s, we're not all the way through there, so that it will impact that group. 21s and 22s both have the chance now to look at every roster to look at every program and say, all right, who is coming back? Who's likely to come back? And how does that affect my decision, or does it affect my decision? So, I think that, yeah, it's a roster management issue that every school is going to have to deal with, and the kids are going to have to deal with from their side. Ryan, you might want to talk more about that.
Yeah, I think, Brian, what it does is allows, using this time to do your research and really look at things differently. Maybe not so much the initial rat race of September 1st for, the 22 class coming up, but, prolonged what the process may look in this time, which is probably slower if there is no summer recruiting. And then, of course, asking those tough questions to mom and dad, but also in the schools that you're interested, roster caps, roster sizes, what they might have returning over the next 3 or 4 years.
Question regarding the recruiting window. Let's say June is lost and stuff starts opening up in July and August. Will the NCAA extend the recruiting window into August? Have you guys heard anything?
No, one more unknown to deal with. But look, if all we lose is June, I'll be surprised, but I'll be pleased. I think, there's still plenty of time for everything to happen. The question is the appetite for kids to get on a plane? Is the appetite for kids and families to spend 3 or 4 days in a hotel room with a bunch of people the same? I question whether it will be. And so I think that may change some of these events a lot. Then you might see more regional, local events than you're going to see national events. I'm just not sure the West Coast Stars are going to spend their whole month of July flying back and forth and staying in hotels the way they have the last few years, and that goes for Texas and everywhere else, Colorado and all that, and vice versa for, schools in the East going out there. So that's going to be an interesting thing. But, to Ryan's point, we're also going to see a change in a lot of this. There aren't going to be as many opportunities to see people. You're just, even if it's condensed, we're just not going to be able to get to as many events. We're not going to see the same guy as many times. And I think it's going to cause a change, maybe a little bit of a throwback in recruiting. We're going to have to rely on you guys. Thank God I have the same last name as 2 of you. And I can count on getting a good, honest appraisal on guys. But no, we're all going to have to, we're going to have to go back to recruiting as it was 25 years ago when most of it was the relationships that you had with the coaches, the club coaches, the high school coaches, and saying, I got a guy for you. Okay, tell me about him. Tell me, how's he fit, this, that. And then I'm only going to get to see that guy maybe one time before I have to decide. So your opinion and your relationships are going to matter a lot.
Do you think this will impact where you'll go? Do you think this will impact where you'll send your staff on the road and how long you guys will stay if you're going out to tournaments?
Of course. Hard to say how, but of course it will impact it. No question about that. Wouldn't you say, Ryan? Would you agree with what I'm saying about the?
Yeah, I think what will happen now is it becomes a little bit more of who are the guys? We got to do a better job identifying what we're going to see and who's going to be there, as opposed to, well, these teams are here and we know the talent will be good. If we're in a shrunken window or closed off window, then we got to do our job before we even get to the field so that we know who we're looking at and we're efficient in that regard as a staff.
And you need to help your kids do a better job. They need to get farther along in the process than saying, yeah, everybody in Division I is my target. Like, listen, if you're looking at Harvard, Notre Dame, and Towson, you probably haven't done enough research at this point to, you need to think about this and narrow down what you're looking at to make sure that the schools make sense, because there's going to be a smaller window and less opportunities to chop away at this.
So in that regard, how would you advise us to advise our kids on how to be most effective during this time? I know they spend a lot of time sending emails and copies of their films and their resumes and all that stuff. Is there anything that you'd be looking for?
All those things still matter. Get us the information we've always needed to make decisions. but also get us in touch with the people who can help us, who have had a better chance to evaluate them than we might. Get us film, and go to events selectively, knowing what your target audience is. Right? You may not be able to go to 6 events, so pick the events again. If you've done some work on your side, we've done some work on our side. Where we're going to be. The schools you're looking at. You're gonna work at it a little bit. It's not gonna be for kids maybe the same shotgun approach, and that might mean going to a few prospect days as opposed to going to, as many open events, because you've already narrowed the field a little bit.
So with that film, and the kids sending you their game film or their highlights, like what would you say you guys prefer? Would you prefer to see a full game, or would you prefer to see like their highlight reel?
Chris and Rye, you guys take that.
Yeah, well, you can jump in first. And
Sure. In terms of, I like to see a quick highlight film first. I'm not opposed to game film right away either, but I think, a quick highlight film, the guidance I would give is something on YouTube that's it's easily accessible. There's good recruiting services that are out there, but I think the simplest way for coaches to click on a YouTube link, and I say no more than 3 minutes as well. We used to get some highlight films like 9-10 minutes.
Mhm.
You're really watching the first couple minutes and deciding from there, all right, is this someone, if we didn't know about them yet, that we want to learn more about, or not. And then you can certainly get additional film from there. But in a highlight film, I think 2 important things to keep in mind are the highlights should be against competition that the level you aspire to play at. We get a lot of highlight films of young men playing against kids that those kids are never going to play at the level that we're looking at for our program. And I know that's hard to do all the time. Obviously, not every one of these games are going to be at that level. But the point is, against the best possible competition, we want to see you executing the fundamentals of the game. And the second piece I would add is I always like to see young men playing in really that matter. The fourth quarter, overtimes, end of a half. I want to see you in situations, in under pressure and critical moments. How are you a teammate in those moments? What's your team asking you to do in those moments? So not just kind of just random, arbitrary highlights, but I really like to see, hey, this was in the overtime of this game, or end of the half of this game.
yeah, I'm not so sure there's much for me to add right there. I think that you want to wet the coach's whistle a little bit, so a highlight to start, and then if that coach is interested or we're interested, we're going to follow up. We're going to want to see more film, probably a full game, but at least we have a concentrated period of time and a short period of time to really look at that young man. But I think it goes back to what Coach Corrigan talked about is them doing their homework to realize and asking you guys, their club coaches and their high school coaches, the caliber and skill level that they can aspire to, whether it's a reach or it's more likelihood. I mean, I think that's a big part of it. It saves a lot of time and a lot of probably negative reaction if there's more realistic expectations. And that happens on the front end, not necessarily on the back end. Okay, I know where I need to look at or who I can play at realistically, and then it's up to them to make that decision, of course. But all that can happen way before the film even hits the coach's hands. It's no different than us going to a field and being like, all right, we want to see Johnny, Sam, and Frank, and 6 other guys walk up and it's not Johnny, Sam, or Frank, and we know that those guys can't play.
And you guys have been in all 3 of you, right, at unbelievable programs, Harvard and Navy for you, Ryan, Harvard for you, Chris. And the game has evolved a great deal, and the level of athletes you have. So you're talking about that, and maybe for our kids, can you give an idea, like, what kind of guys get into play at Notre Dame or at Harvard or at Navy these days? What kind of athletes are they? What other sports do they play, and what hops off the page when you look at them?
Doug, though, it's just like it's always been. There are some guys that are phenomenally athletic we have 3 or 4 guys on our team that were being recruited for, 1AA football. And, we're on that cusp of, am I a 1A guy or a 1AA guy? If I'm a AA guy, I'm going to go play lacrosse. If I'm a 1A guy, I'm going to go play football. Right. And, you have some of those guys, but then you got, guys that still probably not a hell of a lot more athletic than I am at this age, but they're super smart and skilled and can, you know what I mean? Or whatever. That's the great thing about lacrosse is there's always been such a range of athletes. In general, the ACC has a reputation for having the best athletes for a reason. We typically do. We get the best combination of those athlete, lacrosse player, IQ, skill, all of that. And I don't think our team's any exception to that.
I would add, with the growth of the game, and we're seeing even more and more guys that are playing lacrosse in college that could be Division I AA or Division, the highest level football players, and could be great athletes in other sports. I just think you're seeing those have always been there for as long as this game has been played. But I just think there's a greater prevalence of guys coming in that could have played big time sport, a big time sport at another program.
Yeah, I would echo the same. I think, we were talking as a staff yesterday and had a conversation about one of the things that this time that we're in is restored or at least revisited is like seeing kids playing, pickup basketball and, having to catch with their friends in their backyard or in their driveway. I mean, I haven't seen that for years, and I'm sure we're all in the same era that we talked about how that was our upbringing, unorganized sports. And now we're getting a chance to see our kids and our neighbors and whoever else, our community return back to it. I think that's going to be a positive for the sport of lacrosse and all sports for that matter.
How would you recommend people think about that? If I'm a kid and I'm wondering where to go to college, how do I look at myself? When you guys go to watch a game, the guy you're going to recruit is going to be one of the top 3 or 4 athletes on the field at any given game against any team, right? And Kevin, you've lived through this with your son not too long ago. Where's he thinking about, and how do I fit? How do I look at that if I'm going to be a Division I guy, or I'm going to be a NESCAC guy, or I'm going to be a Division III guy somewhere, or maybe a Division II? Like, do you have any point of view on that, or how you might advise if it was your son going through the process?
Well, I mean, I think, listen, you want kids, and we've all had kids that we didn't expect to become the players they were going to become, or, you know what I mean? Or, guys that came to your program and you're like, this guy will never play for us. He ends up being a really good player for you. So there's nothing wrong with being aspirational about it. And picturing yourself and aiming towards the highest level. It's also nothing wrong with accepting the collective wisdom of everybody that says, no, you're not. As I told Will, when he used to ask me, am I a Division I lacrosse player? And I used to say, well, you are if some Division I coach gives you a chance to be, and you're not if they don't. That's just the reality of it. And, so that was there's a let's wait and see. Let's wait and see what the collective wisdom is. Are you going to be able to play at that level? And I'll give you my opinion, but you need to listen to these other guys too, because they're not your father. So I think we've all had that experience of working with guys. Is this guy, can he become a player at that level? And one thing that makes it impossible to tell, well, there are a couple of things. One is you can't ever account for a kid's just competitive drive and that drives him to build the skills that he didn't have, or to become the athlete through his strength training and different things that he didn't have at a certain point and continues to achieve that. And the other is IQ for the game. And our game just goes so far, right? I mean, it's a fluid game, and the guy that knows his way around the field and can make people better and always be in the right spot and do it, there's always a place for that guy on just about any team, right? And provided he has the minimal amount of athleticism required at that level, whatever that level is. And those things make it hard sometimes for us all to judge, and that's why you see some of these guys that end up in Division II or III that you're like, how in the world did that guy end up in Division II or III? Well, he didn't have all those pieces when he came out, but he had something that got him there.
There is a lot of overlap. I mean, there's a bunch of Division III guys that could play at almost any Division I program. And there's some guys in Division I rosters that wouldn't play in Division III programs. So there's obviously that tells us there's other factors where young men make decisions, go into a NESCAC potentially because of such a strong academic school over going to play at a Division I, college where I might not get on the field, so all of those factors kind of play into it. But I've always, just to follow up what Coach was saying, you go to a prospect day and we could tell your club coach and high school coach pretty much right away what we think, and that's only our opinion. We might not be right, so you go to a few of those and just asking that question, where do you see, what level do you project this player?
So correct me if I'm wrong, because I do a fair amount of this stuff when I'm talking to the Rough Rider parents and the kids and doing a little recruiting speech, and everybody aspires to be a high D1 guy, right? They think they want that dream until they meet Coach Petramala. But nevertheless, they think, and one of the things that I've been saying to them, I said, you honestly, if you really think you're a high D1 guy, you have to honestly say to yourself that you are one of the best 3 or 4 kids on the field every time you play, and every time you play, you're impacting winning or losing the game. Like, you have to be the man, basically. Not once every 5 games, every game. And I just think back to all the high D1 kids that I've had in the past, and those kids, game in and game out in high school and in club, were the most highly impactful guys. And I'm trying to manage their expectations and the expectations of the parents, because some of the parents are freaking insane. So am I wrong there? Am I pretty accurate there, guys? Or?
Well, I mean, obviously that depends on the program you're in. If you're at Haverford, you don't have to be the third
Right.
best player on the field. You could have a chance to play somewhere. But yeah, in most high school programs, I think that's probably pretty accurate. If you're not one of the guys determining outcomes in high school, it's hard to play in a top 10 Division I program.
Yeah.
Who is the guy, you just brought that up, who is the guy, as you look at it, Kev, who surprised you the most in your career, who you thought, as a freshman coming in, well, maybe a little too small, a little too slow, don't know, and then by the time he's 4th year, you got him going, holy cow.
Yeah, that's a good question. Let me think about that one for a minute. But we've definitely had a few of those. We had. I'm trying to think of Kevin Randall came in for us, didn't play for 2 years, and graduated as a first-team All-American. So he was playing behind good players, but he was also kind of not, but just grew and got stronger and super disciplined and super fundamentally sound. And the next thing you know, he's one of the best defensemen in the country. So a guy like that, because of what he ultimately became. But we've had a lot of guys who kind of got onto the field where you were like, didn't see that coming. When for the first year, you're looking at him going, man. I don't want to point out too many guys, but that definitely happens. There's no question about that.
I was like that John Sosha.
Yeah.
John Sosha might have been 5'2", 110 pounds.
Yeah. I mean, John Sosha is the amazing thing about John Sosha, and this is one of those things that we all have to remind ourselves is, like, John Sosha ended up playing for us in his junior year because somebody got hurt, right? And what was apparent from the first game that he played for us, and he never left the field after that as a major contributor, but we were better when he was in the game. I don't know what it was, but we were better when he played for us. We played better lacrosse, and it was hard to pinpoint exactly what it was that he did that made that true, but it was 100% true. And so you got to watch for guys like that, because sometimes it's not that obvious. It's not that they do this all the time or do that against anybody or anything. It's just that they the ball never sits with them. They never make the play that causes anybody else, harm. They always get the ball to a guy in the right spot when he wants it, where he wants it. Those kinds of things that are really hard to quantify. So that's a great example.
Yeah, I loved watching him, but he knows how to get out of the way.
Yeah.
One of the things we talk about with our team is it's creating space is one of the greatest things you can do, and never turn your brain off when things are happening.
Yeah.
That's
when you're talking about the recruiting stuff, that's one of those things that gets lost sometimes when you don't see a kid a few different times is, a kid who just makes the right play all the time, it's so much better now with the club system than it was back when 205 was the big thing, right? Or even when Jake's thing became the big thing, and there weren't team events as much. And I can remember when Will went to Jake's event, right? And the first time I watched him play, he came up and said, "What'd you think?" I said, "You have to unlearn some of the things that I've taught you." And he's like, "What do you mean?" I'm like, "If you give up the ball every time, you'll never see the ball again. So you have to recognize in this game right now that you're playing, when are the times for me not to give up the ball, where normally I would just push it down the side or whatever, maybe carry it another 10 yards and then dodge from that angle, as opposed to pushing it down the side and waiting for it to come back around, because it ain't coming back around in this venue." But when teams play together all the time, like the Roughriders, you teach them that, you help them value that, and you can do what we do, which is we talk about all the time, Doug. We call those the invisible plays. Those are your name will never be in the paper because of that play. Your girlfriend or your mother will never tell you after the game, "I saw you create space for that guy. That was fantastic. Like, that was unbelievable." That's just not but those are the invisible plays that make good teams, right? And it make good lacrosse. And we value that, on our team, and we try to see that in guys as we're watching these events. But again, it's always better to see that in a team event, because they're more likely to be doing that, and they're not going to play with that little bit of selfishness that you have to have in an individual event, which showcases certain types of players very well, but other types of players not well at all.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about so just switching up a little bit, obviously every school is different, but the academic component, the flexibility that coaches have or don't have. I mean, I think some people think that it's like football. They have 80 full scholarships and they get whatever kid they want, no matter what their grades are. And I think in lacrosse, it's a little bit, and every school is a little different, but more of a puzzle to put together. And, so if you guys could just talk maybe from your different backgrounds, like how do you think about that as you're putting together a class?
Yeah, that's a good one, because everybody here has been at great academic schools and different levels of academic schools at different times in their career. So, Chris, why don't you start with that one?
Sure. Yeah. No, I think it would depend on the school you're at. I can talk to the Ivy League. The Ivy League uses a system called the academic index. Each school will be given X number of spots, and that's variable depending on the athletic department. So let's just say, for example, that you're going to get 10 admission slots for the men's lacrosse program. That coach's job, the mandate is he has to hit an academic index mean or average with those 10 guys. So, let's just say, for argument's sake, it's a 200. So his 10 guys have to come in at 200. So as you said, exactly right. It is a puzzle, because if you think you have your 10 guys at 200 and one of them decides to go somewhere else, well, you can't just add anyone, right? You gotta, there's pieces to a puzzle to get to that 200 number. And the biggest probably variance in the Ivy League is how low will each athletic department go for men's lacrosse. Certain schools are willing to really extend academically to get someone. Other schools not so much. So that's kind of where you get the variance within the league. But each school has their own mean, and it's not to get too technical, but it's one standard deviation below the school mean. So you go, there's the school who's the highest academically is going to have the highest men's lacrosse mean, down to the school who's eighth who's going to have the lowest mean. So even within the league, there's a different average mean for each athletic department.
What goes into creating that academic index?
Sorry, I didn't hear that.
What goes into that academic index?
Okay, so it's 1/3 of it is your GPA, and then 2/3 is your standardized testing. So there's a formula for, if you're 0 to 100, if you're to a 4.0, whatever. Let's say you're 3.7, you would get from 0 to 80 points. Again, not to get too technical. If you're 3.7, let's just say you get 75 points. And then to make it easy with the SAT, you just drop a 0. So if you're a 1400, it's 140. So it's just 140 plus 2 or plus 75 is 215 for that young man. And then the ACT, there's an equivalent, like a 30 is equal to a 680 or 1360, SAT.
Okay.
So there's an ACT equivalent to the SAT as well.
Now going into this, I guess the rest of this year, I guess the SATs have been postponed for the most part, right, till August. Is there any concern about how that's going to play into recruiting? Like for that class of 2021 or 2022?
There's concern just because you don't know what your admissions people are going to do. I mean, I've been here 33 years. I have a pretty good idea of our admissions people, even though, year to year they change a little bit and everything. You have a pretty good sense of what's going on. All of a sudden, SATs don't matter. Then you got a whole new calculus on your hands, and so you don't know how they're going to do that, because they're to Chris's point, it's just about finding guys that fit. This is what a lot of kids and parents don't understand. Because you get a question sometimes, guys will be like, "How did you miss out on this kid? I know you guys were recruiting him. How did you guys not get him?" And it'd be like, "Well, we couldn't get him in," and then they'll be like, "Man, that can't be right because they got so and so in, and he's But it's all about the timing. If you were at the 8th guy in your class already and you couldn't get a guy, you've already gotten your help. You know what I mean? Like your rest of your guys have to raise the average. And so at that point, despite the fact that you might have taken him over one of the 8 guys you have, you can't go back and tell that guy, "Hey, we found somebody better. You're out. He's in," and we keep the average. You have to work with what you have. So a guy that can get in as the 2nd guy in your class might not be able to get in as the 9th guy in your class. And so even within a school, it's a sliding scale at different times and everything else. That's why every situation is different. There are very few schools that can just say blanket, "Give me a 2.5 and a this, and I can get you in." You know what I mean? And the only schools that can do that are, frankly, the schools that aren't that good. Really good schools, it's more to what you said already, is more of a puzzle that you're putting together. And it matters when, and it matters where you're from, and it matters, a lot of things that you don't think, necessarily might be important. It might even matter that we haven't gotten a goalie yet. We have to get a goalie this year, and I need the maximum flexibility to get that goalie. So I need this guy to be good because he's the second to last guy, and the last guy is going to be a goalie, and I can't be hamstrung by my goalie has to be a 3.8, 1480. I need that guy to be able to have flexibility. So I need to build my last 2 guys before that. I need them to build up the average so I can go after the goalie that I need. So it's all a puzzle. And you can't really talk about all of that specifically with a parent, but if they understand the general, way that works, and if the kids understand that, then they can understand some of the decisions that might seem nonsensical to them, just at any given time. And Ryan, I know you got another whole experience with this and a lot of experience with it. Go ahead and talk about some of the stuff you.
I mean, even from a D3 perspective, I spent, my first 8 years at a Division III school, 3 different ones, the Merchant Marine Academy, then Stevens Tech, and then finally at W&L. So, I mean, I was even an admissions officer at Stevens Tech. So I had an idea and we used an academic index, but we still had to play the pieces as a recruiter, but even in the admissions office to make, when we were trying to build classes overall, general population, it was all about the yield. That was there's a lot of numbers that go into this. And of course, same thing at Stony Brook. It was, you couldn't just go out and get anybody. It didn't matter what their academic profile was. It doesn't work that way. And of course, the same thing at the Naval Academy. we were given certain criteria that we knew a benchmark, I should say, that we knew we had to hit. And, there was a threshold one way or the other. But, what the point that coach brought up was, if there was a special player and we knew we could balance out, our class and what the needs were of the academy, then we felt pretty good about going after that special player. But that wasn't very often, and it wasn't something we used all the time. But yeah, athletics at the Naval Academy and the academies is given preferred admission for sure. And but you got to hit the criteria that they're looking for.
And this is where sometimes families and kids get caught. They're trying to. They look at it. Oh well, it's a game. It's all this game. It's it's like and so I'm going to play the game. And so they try to be coy about what their interest is, or they try to string a coach along or a program along. And yeah, I mean there's some part of it that to leverage your worth and do all that is one thing. But on the other hand, sometimes they don't know that they're kind of playing their way right out of a position because you're going, you know what, we need to keep a group of guys over here that we can, that we know we can get, or that want us and that we want them, but we can't have all of them. And so, when a guy won't play with you, you're like, all right, well, he's over here in this other bucket, with guys that we might be able to get. And so, when it comes time to moving some of these pieces around, it's nice to know that a guy's told you, and this is funny because this is even going on right now with some of these 5th year things, right? And even our own 5th year guys, do you want to come back? A couple of them have said to me, Coach, I'm going to put my name in the portal because I want to give myself some options. And I'm like, you know what? That makes perfect sense. That's exactly what you should do. But then of the 3 guys that said that to me, 2 of them came back to me in a subsequent conversation and said, Coach, just so you know, I'm creating options because I think it's probably the smart thing to do. And that's what you told us to do. I want to come back to Notre Dame. Like I 100% want to come back to Notre Dame. If there's any way for me to come back to Notre Dame, that's what I want to do. Well, that changed the whole conversation. That changed, that went from, oh, okay, I can look at the guy from Penn and the guy from here because I don't know, I'm recruiting both of them, to I got this guy. He's our guy. I know who he is. I know how he fits. I know everything. I got a decision to make about that. And so just saying, in all levels of this recruiting, there's nothing wrong with showing your hand. It doesn't mean at the end of the day, you still can't go, I can't do it for that. You know what I mean? If it's scholarship or whatever, but it does mean that you're telling the guy, no, this is what I want. I hope we can make this happen because this is what I want to happen. But now we got some work to get there, and maybe it's the coach telling you got some work to get there. You got to get a B in that class. So you got a B- in right now. And maybe it's the kid saying, Coach, you got some work to do. I can't come for less than a quarter, or whatever. And you haven't offered me that. And so, but that's the best way for that conversation to go. You know what I mean? I think for both parties to get what they want is for a coach to say, yeah, we'd love for you to be the guy. Not sure I can offer you a scholarship. And the kid says, Coach, I'd love to be there. That's where I want to go. Not sure I can do it for nothing. Okay, now we got a place to talk. We both know we want to get together. Now let's figure this out and see if we can find a way to get there.
When do you expect that what's the timeline with like the transfer portal, and one of those kids need to make those decisions by?
That's a good question. We're all figuring that out right now. There's deadlines with graduate school admissions. There's deadlines with some schools are saying, I'll take you right now, I'll give you this much, but you have to tell me by tomorrow. The same games that get played in recruiting are getting played in this thing. And so you're seeing, kids have to make a decision with less than all the information they'd like to have, but they're being forced into it. And so, yeah, who knows? And there's other kids going, hey, I know you're recruiting another attackman. I want that spot before he gets it, or whatever, or. So hard to say exactly what the timing is, especially because this is all brand new.
Okay. You expect that to be figured out prior to, the summer of 2020 recruiting to take place? Do you expect that to be played out?
Yeah. It would, by and large.
How long do you usually give? I'm sure it's different for every player, but before you start having those financial conversations and scholarship conversations with a prospect. Sorry, my dog's going crazy. But is it like you go on a unofficial visit first and kind of you get to know the kid, they know the school, or do you kind of like if you have them out there, do you talk about it right away or give them a kind of a range? How's that work for you guys?
We generally don't talk about money until we know where the kid stands, as best we can. We'll say to a kid, "You're a scholarship guy." You know what I mean? If we decide to offer you, you're definitely a scholarship guy, so he doesn't have to come out there going, "Well, I've got offers from everywhere, but you haven't offered me anything." We'll tell him that much. But I want to know the kid wants to come to Notre Dame first. I want to know he chose Notre Dame because he wants to be part of our program and he wants to be at Notre Dame. And then let's talk about the money that can make it possible for you to come here. Whether that money is because your family has to have it, or whether that money is because in the competitive nature of this, we have to step up to the plate and be in the same ballpark as everybody else, and that's fine. We're not naive or oblivious to any of that. But I want the kid to want Notre Dame first. So we try to wait as long as we can to make a scholarship offer. And almost never when a kid is on his visit do we make an offer while he's there, because as we say to them, we want to choose you and you want to choose us, right? And so if I made you an offer right now, because a lot of kids come in at the end of the last visit with me and they expect to have their offer right then. Sometimes we'll do that if we've had a long, prolonged recruitment with the kid, but most of the time not, because we're like, we're still deciding whether we want you here or not. We're not going to offer you. We just met you 2 days ago, for the first time. And it takes a little bit longer than that for us to decide whether, I can tell from a lawn chair that you can play at this level, but I can't tell that you're going to be good in my locker room. I can't tell you that I trust you on our campus, and that I want you to represent our program. That's a different thing. So that part of the relationship we have to build. And sometimes you're there when they're visiting, and many times you're not there. And we're straight up about that. We tell them that because we want them to know that. We want them to know, like, this is all part of the process. We're picking you not just for what you can do on the field, but for everything else.
So, Kev, on that point, and applicable to every kid, I think, whether they're thinking about Notre Dame or a smaller D3 school, can you talk a little about on the field? Obviously, you got to play. Coach got to look at you, and you can catch and throw and shoot hard and run fast and do all those things. But what behaviors, do you see that are qualifying or even disqualifying? Because we talked a lot to our kids about attitude and the way you portray yourself and all that. So I'm sure you've lived through some experience where you thought, I really like a kid, and then you go to a game and something happens. So
yeah, we've all do that. One of the things we talk about is what we watch. What does a kid do? How does a kid react when he throws a perfect pass to a guy and his teammate drops it? On the backside of the goal, does he, do all this demonstrative, let everybody know that it was a good pass, and or does he just go on playing and plays without it? How's a kid react when coach calls timeout and he's talking to the team, and is he standing on the outside of the huddle, squirting water on the back of some guy's legs and screwing around, or is he paying attention and trying to learn something and being engaged? How's he react, when he walks off? Does his mom pick up his equipment bag and carry it off, and he drinks Gatorade or what? I mean, those things all matter. We see all that stuff, not, up to and including how do they react with the, to Chris's point, with the ball in their stick at the end of a game. Do they want the ball, or are they seeking the ball in that case? And, or are they playing selfishly at that point, or are they making the appropriate play and doing that? So we're watching all of that. And I think all of that goes into the evaluation, of what, because you're looking for a guy that you're going to spend 4 years with, and then he's going to be part of your program for the next 30 years. His life's too short. I don't want to be around jerks, and so you're looking for that, that guy that is good to be around every day, good to coach, good teammate. You guys weigh in if you.
I look
Totally.
at, sorry, Wilson.
I was just saying, I agree. I don't think there's much for me to add. No.
I would add coachability, extremely important. We learn that by observing them in club games. When they come off the field after they're making a good play or a bad play, if a coach is going to make a point, I'm acutely aware in that situation. I'm watching that, and then I may go back and ask that coach, about that situation, or just overall in general. Is this, what's he like in terms of coachability? We want guys who want to be coached, and we also want guys who we want to coach. And if you have that, then the path in terms of growth and development, can be accelerated as someone who's open, to the coaching staff and getting better.
Actually, can I, that just jogged a little, something. I mean, I think it's important that we remind ourselves why we're at certain events. Yes, we want sport of lacrosse, and everybody wants to possibly play it at a different level. But we have to be aware of the environment we're in. And, when you're purposely attending a recruiting tournament, then, I think that you gotta remind yourself, I'm being evaluated and looked at, not just on the field, but in everything I do. And that goes for your parents as well. Looking to see who is, why we're there, I guess. And knowing that, it's important to Coach Corrigan's point and Coach Woj's point that, they want the very best athlete, but they most importantly want the very best young man and the very best family, because it's a 4-year relationship and we're going to get very intimate. You don't want any loose cannons.
Cool. Thanks, guys. Is there anything in particular that the class of 2021 should be doing right now in order to be recruited? Or, I mean, not just with you guys, but anything you've heard from speaking with colleagues?
Our mantra with our guys is control what you control, right? So what can you get better at right now? Well, everybody's got a ball to stick in a wall. Mm-hmm. And if you're not working on your offhand right now, I don't know why not, because what else do you have to do? So there's that, right? I mean, you may not be able to get better running the fast break, but you can sure get better throwing the left-handed pass to the point man during this time. So, do what you can. If that involves that you have a gym in your garage, or or just the ability to work out with somebody, then great. Take advantage of that right now. But control the thing that you have control of as best you can.
Yeah, I would take the approach from an attitude of, we don't know what's going to happen, so you should be training like, you could be playing again in a month or 2 months, or maybe not for another 9 months. Who knows what's going to happen here. So, you're and the second point is you don't need me to tell you that. You don't need any of the coaches on this call to tell you that. You're driven or you're not driven. You're not doing it because the Notre Dame staff said you should be going out and doing X, Y, and Z. Right now we could certainly give guidance and examples of how to train certain ways, but young man, he's driven, he's self-motivated, or he's not. So this is an incredible time of, we always talk about, what are you doing when no one's watching? It's, reveals your character. This is going on across the country, and not just lacrosse, but in all aspects of life. This is an incredible time for, no one's watching. And in this, this pandemic, there's going to be kids that are going to come out of it who are worse. There's going to be kids who are going to stay the same, but the kids that are going to be great, they're going to have used this opportunity to get better, to grow, and to be, even better, when we do get out of this.
Great point. I'm going to be such a better pickleball player when this whole thing is over. It's off the charts.